Jinx Monsoon says it correctly. Watching Drag Race doesn't make you an expert on drag. It makes you a fan of a TV show.
So I'm starting out with this bit of a disclaimer because I'm not trying to claim I'm an expert on anything. I'm just a Drag Race fan. Most of what I talk about is based on my own observations and how my experiences interpret those things, so don't take me too seriously. But I will also mention things that are important and should be taken seriously in the grand scheme of things, if you get my drift. So I'm 34 now, and I just finally got into RuPaul's Drag Race within the last 6 months. I want to talk about Drag Race because I'm a little baffled that some fellow Drag Race fans are, quote, bored of it being too political compared to earlier seasons. But to be fair, it seems to be a small subsection of fans. But I want to say, Drag Race is inherently political. It can't not be. And leaning into this is probably why it's even survived for as long as it has. I think Drag Race is still around as a show in part because it has had to evolve and adapt to survive. And even that hasn't been a perfect process, of course, as RuPaul himself has definitely put his foot in his mouth multiple times. A 2018 Vox article by Caroline Famke summarizes these controversies pretty well. In 2012, after Lance Bass issued an apology for using the word T-slur and cited its use on RuPaul's Drag Race as part of why he thought it might be okay, RuPaul was openly annoyed that Bass should have to walk that back. I love the word T-slur, he insisted, and no one has ever said the word T-slur in a derogatory sense. 2 years later, one of the show's first real tests came as it finally acknowledged that transgender people, including former Drag Race contestants, were uncomfortable with the fact that RuPaul would beam in announcements to the show's workroom with a cackling, "You've got blank," a play on a particularly vicious derogatory term for transgender women. Logo, the show's home network, officially ditched it for the 7th season, but RuPaul was, again, openly annoyed about it. "You have to ask the network why they did it," he told Vulture in 2016, but I had nothing to do with that. This frustration at not being able to keep using a term that many people consider a slur in the name of fun is a weirdly conservative statement from someone who purports to be a leader in the LGBTQ community. Although reclaiming derogatory language is and always has been a part of the LGBTQ experience, RuPaul trying to do so with the term that isn't his to reclaim isn't revolutionary. His discomfort with being called out, therefore, looks an awful lot like railing against political correctness wrapped in the guise of a right to unlimited self-expression. In 2018, he was quoted as saying that he probably wouldn't have admitted a transgender woman like Peppermint, an iconic New York City performer who made the finals in season 9 after coming out as trans on the show, if she had already started gender-affirming surgery. "You can identify as a woman and say you're transitioning, but it changes once you start changing your body," he said. "It takes on a different thing. It changes the whole concept of what we're doing." This response immediately sparked a wave of disappointing anger within several overlapping communities: Drag Race fans, the show's former contestants, trans and otherwise, and trans performers. In response to the growing backlash, RuPaul doubled down with an ill-advised tweet. "You can take performance-enhancing drugs and still be an athlete," RuPaul wrote, "just not in the Olympics." Which I roll at obvious BS, as Trinity the Tuck was also on season 9 with Peppermint, and she had almost immediately admitted to plastic surgery on the show. What the fuck? And by the way, Trinity the Tuck has come out as trans in 2022. To no one's surprise, this rather jaw-dropping comparison didn't do much to help the situation. Many pointed out that plenty of Drag Race contestants have had plastic surgery, some more and more openly than others, and so suggesting that it's a deal breaker is disingenuous at best. Less than 7 hours after his controversial tweet, RuPaul reeled his words all the way back. "I understand and regret the hurt that I have caused," he wrote. "Trans community are heroes of our shared LGBTQ movement. You are my teachers." In her response, Peppermint called the apology an important step, emphasizing that women should not be defined by what surgeries they have had or haven't had, and that gay men do not own the idea of gender performance. And it wasn't until 2021, with the show's 13th season, that Drag Race started using racers start your engines and made the best drag queen win in order to even be more inclusive. So I think I just want to remind everyone that these changes were obviously brought about by fellow Drag Race contestants. So it feels really silly to me to want a show like Drag Race to not be political when the queens on the show, the literal main characters, are the ones who are rightfully asking for changes in how they are being represented. Alright, so I want to get into some background info for my fellow Drag Race noobs. Drag Race started airing on Logo TV in 2009, where it stayed until season 8, which was 2016. The move to VH1 for seasons 9 through 14, the time period being 2017 to 2022, and then to MTV, starting with the most recent season 15, are probably factors, among others of course, in why/how Drag Race has changed over the years. Launched in 2005, Logo was originally dedicated to lifestyle and entertainment programming targeting LGBT audiences. MTV Networks and Time Warner Cable announced an agreement on December 11, 2006 to expand its distribution of Logo to additional markets. Logo became available on Dish Network in May 2009 as part of an add-on package. So I'm only highlighting this to point out that at the time, Logo TV was not as widely available as MTV and VH1. Thus meaning their audience was always going to be smaller regardless of it also being a niche LGBT channel, which, obviously narrows that a bit more. Throughout Drag Race's time on Logo, the show seemed to go through a lot of changes that I think enabled it to become more accessible to a wider audience and become popular enough to move to its sister channel VH1. The move to VH1 in 2017 meant even more visibility to a wider audience, and that means more of a responsibility to show good representation of marginalized communities, that they are multifaceted, relatable, important, and of course conveying that these communities are more than just a monolith. But apparently some long-term fans have complained about Drag Race changing too much from the earlier seasons, that it's too nice and that the queens are scared of drama now. So I have a bit of an issue with that lazy ass viewpoint. But before I get into that, I just want to provide some context on where I'm coming from as a person. And I feel my age is slightly relevant because I was a teenager during that 2000s time period of reality TV, and I'm defining the peak of reality TV to be around that time because that's when there were a lot of shows in that genre of varying quality, a lot of it being bad. TV critic Kelly Lawler from USA Today summarizes this time period of reality TV. You can't fix systemic poverty with a hug and a kitchen island. American TV viewers learned these lessons in the early 2000s when a kind of morally odious reality TV show proliferated on network television, epitomized by Extreme Makeover Home Edition, The Biggest Loser, and Super Nanny. These series conjured powerful primal feelings in their heyday, whether that was loathing,
Schadenfreude,
or joy. The producers also exploited anyone who came into their orbit to tug on some emotional heartstrings to deliver ratings. And I won't lie, I watched a lot of what became to be considered trashy reality shows. For example, MTV's Next, A Shot of Love with Tila Tequila, VH1's Flavor of Love, Rock of Love. Also watched early seasons of America's Next Top Model. America's Next Top Model maybe didn't start as messy as the other shows that would follow it, but it definitely did become that way over time too. See the many ANTM controversies that keep popping up to this day. But eventually I got to the point of, I don't think I want to engage with this type of media anymore. And I'm not saying it's inherently bad to watch these kinds of shows, but they were / are pretty morally dubious. I just personally wanted to find other things to watch at the time, but the pickings were slim. So I'm pretty sure I did know about early Drag Race, but A, we didn't have Logo as that was like a basic plus channel in our region at the time, and B, by 2009, I was already hesitant about getting into another possibly disappointing reality TV show. And I was also in the middle of undergrad, having almost daily existential crises, but that's neither here or there. I remember being made aware about season 3 of Drag Race, which would be 2011, because one of the upcoming contestants had already been on a show before, America's Next Top Model. I remember seeing Sutan, aka Raja, in the background of a few episodes when he started with ANTM season 4 in 2005 as a makeup artist. He seemed to be a bit of a fan favorite at the time, and I'm pretty sure I remember that being accurate because I also thought he was very pretty to look at the time. 2011 was also the first time I learned about Adore Galano on Tumblr. Pictures of her were getting reposted, and when I saw her, I wanted to know who she was because her aesthetic is very similar to mine in real life. Shortly thereafter, I learned that Adore was actually a drag queen that had also been on American Idol. Adore is still one of my favorites today. Her style and attitude on the season 6 runway is So despite hearing about Drag Race in its early days, I still denied myself the pleasure of watching it because I guess I thought that reality shows hadn't changed much since their trashy glory days of the 2000s. The recent talk of drag bans really pushed me to finally give Drag Race as the show a shot, so hopefully I could learn more about the art of drag, and of course I wanted to show my support in some way. So as I said, it's only been a few months that I've actually gotten into Drag Race. So in fall of 2022, I started with season 6 because of course that I learned was Adore's debut season. So far I've only watched seasons 1 through 9, 10 kind of, and 15 with most of the companion Untucked episodes, and I've watched All Stars 1 through 3. That's why I included in my title that this is an incomplete analysis, and why I know I probably deserve to be called out on a bunch of things that I'm missing. I rewatched seasons 6 through 9 and All Stars 2 and 3 fairly recently, and eventually I want to rewatch every season, of course. But it was while I was watching Drag Race that I started to realize, holy crap, this is actually the type of representation on TV that I've been waiting for. Specifically, that epiphany came when I watched season 5 with eventual winner Jinx Monsoon and that whole Rolaska Talks click storyline.
Alaska Talks is Roxy, Alaska, and Detox. Rolaska Talks.
It really bothered me seeing how some of the other contestants were being towards Jinx under the guise of, it's a competition, get used to it, we're drag queens. And it's this kind of toxic bullying behavior that I don't think we see that much on Drag Race anymore. It was so obvious watching it the first time that the others were just insecure and they were lashing out at her. And so when I finally watched All Stars 2, I was basically proven right because all members of Alaska Talks basically admitted that they were wrong.
I was a bitch on season 5.
This isn't a joke to me. This competition is extremely serious. You're Jinx Monsoon playing a character.
This is Rolaska Talks and one other person. This is not good. It just all is seeming very, very oddly, strangely familiar. The last time it was the three of us and a lovable weirdo, we all saw how that fucking worked out.
It might have cost them the crown, but I guess it did make for good TV. And, I'm not saying that you can't still get cast on Drag Race if you're a little bit of a drama person, but you're probably not gonna win and you're just there to fill that role. And so one of the obvious reasons the queens are, quote, scared of drama now is because they know it won't help them win the crown. Which is what most queens on the show are trying to do, because that's the point of the show. Because in the context of the competition show that is Drag Race, yes, it's a competition, So you gotta be good at being a drag queen, which I think all the contestants are just by being cast on the show. But obviously you also
have to get people to like you. This is the motherfucking Olympics, girl.
Okay.
You've got to bring it every time. And if you want to be in this business, you have to get people to like you.
And at some point, I think the Drag Race producers realize that they do have responsibility to present media featuring queer people of color in a non-exploitative way, at least do a bit better than that of the obviously trashy 2000s reality TV standard type of show that we talked about earlier. Because representation of and for queer people of color is actually important. I do think early Drag Race had a lot of problems in how they portrayed some of the queens' personal stories, to the point of being a bit irresponsible and exploitative, and sometimes presenting it as trauma porn. And I'm not saying Drag Race is doing a perfect job of this still. I know there are many stories out there from former contestants about some of the BS that's happened to them, and I'm not trying to diminish those discussions at all. It's all still Hollywood, and a lot of things are still motivated by ratings, and so there's definitely legitimacy in worrying about the commercialization of pride and other LGBT-related content. So now I am going to go into my current thoughts about each main season's winners that I've seen so far, and as a reminder, that is seasons 1 through 9. What follows is a quick season blurb summary about each winner. I think we can see a shift in how winners are picked from the earlier seasons. I will say I think season 1 is probably the only exception to the other earlier seasons in, you know, the way they're framed as being, quote, trashy, in my opinion. It's probably because being the first season, obviously they had no idea of whether it'd be successful or not. So I also think that probably shows they didn't initially intend to be the way that they became for like seasons 2, 3, and 4. And that they only made the change because that's probably what they thought got ratings at the time, and that was true. So season 1 winner BB Zahara Benet, I believe, won rightfully so, and that's because I've agreed with the fellow YouTubers' analysis. I really cannot remember which other YouTuber it was, but I definitely want to give credit to them when I figure it out. I just don't know what search terms to use to find that specific verbiage, but their analysis was basically that BB probably won over Nina because BB was more of a conventional drag queen at the time and probably more family friendly. And you know, obviously not to take any away from BB because she is for sure very solid professional queen. I personally just wanted Nina to win because I just love my edgy queens. But I get it, for again being the first season, they probably just wanted to be safe. So season 2 of Drag Race aired in 2010, with the eventual winner being the drag queen formerly known as Tyra Sanchez. But during her season, Tyra was also just not very likable because she just wasn't nice. Sorry to say that. And I think being likable actually matters for the consideration of the crown nowadays. The fact that she went at age 21 was a significant accomplishment, and that is something to be proud of. She did do well in the competition portion of it, and I'm not trying to take that away from her. But like I said, she just wasn't very nice along with a lot of the other contestants from season 2. It was very messy. But that was the kind of TV drama that was unfortunately common at the time, and I think some of the messy queens knew that and felt it was probably just a part of being on reality TV in order to get that sweet airtime. But little did they know, I guess, that the status quo can change. Season 3 is considered by some as one of the major rigged seasons because, as I mentioned before, Raja was already known in the industry type circles by being a makeup artist on America's Next Top Model. She was considered an obvious shoo-in from the beginning, and thus rumors at the time were that she was picked as the season 3 winner before filming even started. Okay, a bit of a tangent. So I know I would sound like a hypocrite to say that I would be okay with Jinx getting a win through possible producer riggery, more on that in a bit, but not okay with Raja's win possibly being also rigged. And it's gonna sound like that because I personally didn't really like Raja's personality on season 3. Sorry, I just don't really like mean girls. And like I said with season 2, I don't think mean girl queens win Drag Race anymore. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Like I said, I am missing like 5 seasons. A quick glance at their Wikipedia pages of the winners that I don't know that well yet seem to show me that they aren't getting into controversies anymore. But let me know, are there any, quote, mean queens who have won Drag Race and earlier in these more recent seasons? Because I'm sorry, but Raja was not even a covert mean girl on her season to me. That whole Heather's clique, it's just a joke bra vibes. Nah, I don't buy it. They were just straight up being mean under the guise of being shady. It isn't cute seeing 30-something-year-olds acting like they never left high school. To clarify, I'm not saying Raja wasn't worthy of the crown. She's an amazing high fashion queen, that's undeniable. But I just don't think she nor the queen formerly known as Tyra Sanchez would have won if they were on later seasons. It seems to me that Tyra and Raja's wins were made possible by early Drag Race's lack of a clear ethos, maybe? After Drag Race survived beyond season 1, producers probably wanted the show to fit in with other popular reality shows at the time, many of which seemed to lack a strong ethos. After Drag Race survived beyond season 1, producers probably wanted the show to fit in with the other popular reality TV shows at the time, many of which seemed to lack a strong ethos, in that they mostly focused on increasing viewership through displaying outrageous, clickbaity type of behavior instead of more thoughtful storylines. And how many of those reality shows are still on the air today? Yeah, exactly. They didn't survive for various reasons, I'm sure, but one of those reasons might have to do with failing to keep up with the times. Season 4, 2012 winner, who I shall not name right now. Obviously before I learned of things that happened post Drag Race as well for this contestant, I thought I liked her as the first, quote, weird underdog contestant to win Drag Race, but if you can see, they've had a large share of controversies as well. Sorry, another tangent here. So, fellow season 4 top 3 contestant, formerly known as Fifi O'Hara, had inadvertently become the first sacrificial mean girl. Previous seasons 2 and 3 had no such qualms on crowning mean girls, but now queens like her were probably never going to win going forward. Season 5's sacrificial mean girl Roxy Andrews also seemed to miss the memo at the time. I think this show had kind of low-key signaled to all its viewers that it's okay to be a bitch on the show because you can still win and it makes for great TV. But I don't think Drag Race is like that anymore, and I don't get why some fans are mad about it and miss that era of Drag Race. To be fair, Fifi did try to take responsibility for her previous actions when she was cast in All Stars 2. She knew her behavior on season 4 made her look bad. She literally admitted that no one wanted to work with her after the show, which is kind of crazy hearing that, because now we hear so many of the queens talk about how just being on Drag Race can change their lives for the better, so she really fumbled that bag, honestly. And that's why I think there aren't as many, quote, mean girls on the show anymore. Contestants just aren't willing to tarnish their reputation or personal brands just for drama views. I think Drag Race has rightfully discouraged it, or at least is trying to be less gross about it now. I think Drag Race just didn't want to be another Bad Girls Club light type of show anymore. Sorry to keep harping on about season 4. I think Latrice Royale and Chad Michaels know what I'm talking about in regards to just having low tolerance for just immature behavior. Like, they were tired AF during their Snatch Game with the other contestants' foolishness. And don't get me started on Snatch Game. Okay, we'll go into that when we get to Bianca Del Rio, obviously. But season 4 is known to be pretty bad for their Snatch Game, and I think a part of that is probably because some of the contestants thought that what they were doing was just good TV, and they just totally missed the importance of how to do well in Snatch Game. Moving on, season 5, 2013 winner Jinx Monsoon. We all know she's thriving right now. She manifested that Broadway role. No current notes. Okay, just a record scratch here, because I know there are some claims that season 5 was apparently, quote, rigged for Jinx to win. Like, when apparently she had to sing for her life, and the producers changed the lip sync song to be more favorable towards her. And that may be true, and I honestly really don't care if it is, because I think season 5 is an example of the shift being towards being more intentional with what storylines producers were highlighting. You know, storylines where viewers can actually get to know the contestants as people, and not simply as contestants on a reality TV show being catty to win or whatever. Season 6 winner Bianca Del Rio, 2014. Well known as the mean clown with heart of gold. So when I first watched season 6 without Untucked, I thought the final 4, it was total BS coming out of her mouth when she was like, I've grown as a person throughout this show. And I was like, what? That one time you let a door borrow a corset? Is that the growth you're talking about? Like, what? It's not like I didn't like her, but I thought that was BS at the time. But actually, what I didn't know is that a lot of that growth was actually happening, and it was better seen on those Untucked episodes. So when I finally watched them, I was like, oh crap, of course. She was right, that was wrong. So Bianca being a mean queen is also obviously a little blurry, because yes, she calls herself mean, everyone calls her mean, but like, she does it with a sense of professionalism. Like, she knows how to balance that out, and when the timing is correct, because it's not always the right time to be mean or sassy or whatever, right? Like, just look at her as the most recent pit stop host, and like with each guest that she has, she can adapt her approach with each queen. Because we all know Bianca can go in deep on people, but she doesn't do it with everyone. It's like, she knows, you know, everyone's, or like, different levels of tolerance for certain things, and she respects their boundaries, even as a sassy drag queen. See, so she can do it. She can still be considered a, quote, mean queen, but she's still very likable because she knows how to time it, and who to do it with, and like when it's appropriate or like, you know, acceptable to do so. That's all. She explains it perfectly on one of the pit stop episodes. She won her Snatch Game, and she would know how to win it, obviously. So even in her pit stop interview, though, she's presenting it meekly, kind of like, this is just my advice, but she's just explaining how to play Snatch Game. Like, that's just how you do it. Like, she's not using some secret strategy. There are other ways you can win, but that's the basis of what Bianca's saying is true, right? You're not just picking a celebrity and memorizing their catchphrases, right? It has to make sense. The answer has to make sense in the context of Snatch Game, and it has to be funny, right? It's not just being accurate and boring, or like totally outrageous and like totally inaccurate. But yeah. Season 7 about Tchotchke won in 2015. Yes, we can probably argue that winners like Violet Tchotchke were mean girls in their season, and they still won. She definitely wasn't likable in the first half, but at the very least, near the end, her storyline did show her progressing and pushing through that quote meanness, and like even other queens acknowledge that like, oh yeah, she's doing better. So I'm not mad about Violet winning. And also I think it's interesting that season 7 in 2015, that was the first time that Drag Race was ever nominated for a Primetime Emmy. And this first nomination was specifically just for their makeup department though. But it is interesting to note that. Season 8, Bob Drag Queen in 2016. I love her so much. I like to say she was the right queen at the right time, and that's simply because of, you know, the election year, and like, you know, she was seen as being like an activist in New York doing protests and stuff. I mean, obviously, unfortunately, that just being a drag queen is just automatically makes you an activist in these times. But 2016, you know, what Bob was doing definitely made her stick out in a good way amongst other queens in her season. So that's why she won, and it's well deserved. Oh, I forgot to mention that actually the first time Drag Race, the show, won. RuPaul's Drag Race won their first Primetime Emmy for hosting. So I guess technically it went through RuPaul, but it counts as for the whole show as their first Emmy win in 2016. That's interesting, I think. So yeah, Emmy nominations started coming in after, you know, things have shifted to be not so trashy. Sorry to say, but seems to be it's working out for them. Finally, the last season I'm familiar with is season 9, Sasha Velour in 2017. She is just great. She's, you know, she's the edgy queen that I like. But you know, she still has sweetness to her, professionalism to her. No notes. So for the rest of the winners that I'm currently not yet fully acquainted with, I glanced at their Wikipedia pages, and so far it doesn't seem like any of the winners from seasons 10 through 14 have a controversy section, unlike season 2 and 4. So yeah, I like to summarize this as season 1 seems to be like the stepping stone of Drag Race, obviously. Seasons 2 through 5 are pretty messy. Not everyone involved, obviously, but also seasons 4 and 5 is when they started crowning the underdogs, and thus slowly shifting away from being just another basic reality TV show from the poorly aged 2000s had begun at that time. So I don't know, I love seeing the queens and their personal growth as storylines. You know, I think a great example of this that surprised me in season 9 was when Eureka was called out for making a joke on eating disorders, and she initially reacted very defensively, but the next episode she owned her shit up and apologized because she realized she was wrong. Her castmates were only trying to communicate a personal boundary to them because it was a topic that affected them directly. They weren't trying to paint Eureka as a bad person like she had mistakenly thought. Of course, getting defensive is a normal reaction, but sometimes you have to realize that we all have moments where we speak carelessly. And getting called out for a mistake isn't supposed to be a personal attack on you. Eureka had enough self-awareness and the maturity to address that issue again, even after she initially shut it down herself. Because that's how you show you're trying to improve as a person. Growth. Another, or final clue, I guess, finally ending my long rant, that I think Drag Race pivoted away storylines so they can be more seriously, or else they wouldn't have survived as a show, is also the awards that I kind of try to sprinkle in there. And I'm not trying to say that like awards are the end all be all. I know a lot of that is some other type of rigor there, but it does kind of provide a type of measurement of quality in a way. It does. So to be fair, the early seasons of Drag Race did win awards. So let me go over a couple of them. So the first award Drag Race received, according to IMDb, was in 2010. It was the GLAAD Media Award for Outstanding Reality Programming. So I had to research this a little bit, right? So when they received that award, it was during when like season 1 had already ended and I think season 2 was starting. So I think it's safe to say that that award was given in regards to the first season, because like, you know, season 2 was already in the middle of when that award was presented and wasn't even finished airing. So I think that's safe to say that that first award was for the first season. I think it's interesting to note that that same award, you know, for Best Reality Program from GLAAD, like Drag Race didn't get nominated for that same award again until seasons 9 or 10 in 2018. Like, so there was this big gap from season 1 until seasons 9 to 8 that GLAAD didn't acknowledge them until way later again. GLAAD is GLAAD and it stands for Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, so it's like a pretty big deal in the LGBTQ community to be like acknowledged and nominated by them. I think get my thoughts out there. That I'm just tired of seeing these silly arguments about Drag Race being too soft and political now, because it's just a lazy argument. So there you go, here are my thoughts. Sorry.